See at least. Camilla, the Duchess Camilla is currently talking to the crowd. We've got our camera right there. Obviously, Prince Charles is alongside her as well. I'm joined here at the desk by Professor David Flint, a noted monarchist. Thanks for your company.
Pleasure.
Cameron Price is obviously at the scene as well. Now I'm on camera too. All right, this is going well. Professor Flint, you can see the images up there, though, of Prince Charles. He's shaking hands, talking to people, so is the Duchess Camilla. How significant is this visit as a way of, if you like, readying Australians for a future king and queen?
Well, frequent visits are a good idea. I mean, it reminds people of the crown. Many of the symbols of the crown have disappeared because of what parliaments have done, removing coats of arms and those of allegiance and the like. But this indicates that the office is still there. It's the tip of the iceberg. Of course, the crown is a much more complicated institution, as you would know, being a professor. It's part and parcel of the constitutional system that we have. And this is the icing on the cake, and it's nice to see.
I want to talk to you about some of the revelations in the 1975 constitutional crisis book by Paul Kelly and Troy Bramston. But let me just bring Cam Price in. He's at the scene there with the future King and Queen of Australia. Cam Price, what are they saying? Can you hear their words to members of the crowd?
Peter, good afternoon. Up close and personal, they came all the way up here, meeting and greeting each and every one along the front of the line here, along the barricades of Martin Place. A lot of people are asking them. I was told in no uncertain terms, no questions, and went to and was actually stopped by one of his security detail. I tried, but a lot of people are asking them if they're enjoying Sydney. They both said they were. I heard the Duchess of Cornwall mention how nice the weather was to a couple of people, and asking them if they were surprised by the number of well-wishers that had come out today, because really there's a few, I would say in excess of 5,000 people, which is an enormous crowd. Lunchtime in Martin Place, many people coming down. People in the crowd also told not to take too many photos up close, and they respected those wishes from the security detail that were alongside the royals as they make their way around and continue to make their way around. Mike Baird is here as well, along with his wife Karen, obviously meeting with both Prince Charles and the Duchess of Cornwall, along with the many people who have gathered here. They're expected to spend about 5 to 10 minutes meeting and greeting crowds. You would expect they might spend a little bit longer. They're making their way down to the George Street end of Martin Place now, where many people are gathered there as well. Peter?
Let me ask you, Professor Flint, what did you think of the opposition leader, Bill Shorten, waiting for this week to raise the spectre of Australia becoming a republic? Is that disrespectful?
Well, disrespectful is probably the wrong thing, but it's inappropriate, but it's his own business. It doesn't upset Prince Charles or Camilla. I mean, they're quite used to this. They know this is going on in Australia. They know there's a debate here, and they're perfectly content with the result of that debate, as is the Queen, I'm sure.
Are you confident that they will become the King and Queen of Australia? Because it does seem, I know that Malcolm Turnbull said at the time of the Republic referendum when it went down, I was campaigning against it. I was on your side of the ledger, but not for the same reasons that I was there.
But still a sound reason, because you recognise that the model was a very bad model.
I was concerned about the model. I didn't like it. I like the American system, but I'm probably few and far between on that here in Australia. But here's the issue, though. There does seem to be movement, you would think, that might result in another referendum before Prince Charles takes up his position.
There's certainly agitation for them. We have a Prime Minister who is obviously Republican. We have the Labour Party with the most convoluted scheme to get this. I mean, it's keep on voting until you get it right. They're going to be 4 national votes.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you. Do you consider this the equivalent of branch stacking if they say, let's have a plebiscite, are you for or against the Republic, and then we can debate the model, almost as if it becomes a fait accompli?
I think having a plebiscite in this era, plebiscites are not bad, but having a plebiscite here is to soften people up without giving them the details. It's to avoid, really, it's to get around the restraints which exist under the referendum system which we have in Australia, which I think is very good, unlike Mumbles, who thinks it's a very bad thing and ought to go.
I notice you neatly rhetorically sidestepped any attempt I might have to then turn the plebiscite question back on you around same-sex marriage. But
I think it should have been a referendum on same-sex marriage.
You're in the Scott Morrison camp.
I think the High Court was wrong, absolutely wrong in the ACT case, and it should have been a referendum, because I think that the Constitution, the constitutional intention, the original intention is between a man and a woman, the exclusion of others for life, and that, if that's to be changed, it should be by way of a referendum. But plebiscite is better than leaving it to the politicians. I think it's too important.
What I at least like about it, we're a bit off topic obviously, but what I at least like about it is that there's a definitive result, whatever it might be, even if it's a close one, it's definitive. We've just lost these images. I was about to say we've still got the images on camera. There's the Duchess Camilla and Prince Charles would not be far behind. Let me ask you about Paul Kelly and Troy Bramston's book. The Politics of the Day is about Julie Bishop, but I'll ask you about that as well. But their book on the 1975 crisis, you're in my camp on this one. I don't think that Sir John Kerr did anything wrong, but there is some new information there that they've delivered. Does it change your view at all?
But I'm sure you would agree with me that what is presented as evidence is not evidence, not good evidence. It isn't contemporaneous, although it subsequently purports to be a contemporaneous note. That's very shallow, that argument, because on the very same day he tells Alan Reid, no, I didn't know what the Governor-General was going to ask me about. That piece of paper sounds like a piece of paper you'd work out when you're working out what will the Governor-General want, because it includes the call for a Royal Commission. He didn't call for a Royal Commission, and he and David Smith worked on that letter that Fraser was to sign the day before. Now, if he'd been asking Malcolm Fraser about whether he would agree to this, he would have included that Royal Commission, which appears in this note.
What about this idea that the Queen wanted Sir John Kerr out as soon as possible around 1977?
I don't know about that, and of course it is putting words into the Queen's mouth, because it's suggesting that people in the palace, there may well have been people in the palace who wanted it, but there'd be all sorts of different opinions going on there. I'm not sure. I don't know whether the Queen wanted it or not. I should imagine that she sails above a lot of these things, and I don't think she would have been that concerned. She's had some strange representatives in various places, and I don't think Sir John did the wrong thing. I agree with you. Looking at him later, because he was a little intoxicated on one occasion, and therefore saying he was a bad man is ridiculous. I think he had the power to do it. He had the duty to do it. The only question is the date. And I'm now persuaded by the argument that Gough brought it on himself by this ridiculous argument, and Paul Kelly agrees it was ridiculous, the advice to have the half-Senate election.
Yeah, that was crazy. Well, the other issue, the other one for me, is that in opposition, the then opposition leader, Gough Whitlam, with his upper house leader, who was none other than Lionel Murphy, I think, wasn't it?
Yes, Lionel Murphy.
They threatened to do the exact same thing that Fraser ultimately was also threatening to do, which was block supply.
On 170 occasions. And Murphy was so proud of it, he tabled it on 169. In fact, the Democrat Labour Senator, Jack Kane, said the only difference between what Whitlam threatened to do and what Fraser did was that Fraser was successful.
Got to get your thoughts on the news that's in the book that Wayne Errington and I have coming out in bookstores next week. Front page of the Australian today revealing that Julie Bishop's Chief of Staff, Murray Hanson, attended the infamous Sunday evening before the ballot plot night with the members of the coup team, if you could put it that way. You're a strong Tony Abbott supporter. We've heard Erica Betts be quite critical this morning about this. Corey Bernardi's been even more pointed with some of his comments. What's your view?
I think loyalty is an important ingredient in politics. I think you have to be loyal, and if you're going to change your mind, you have to then disclose it. I think what she should have done was disclosed what she was involved in.
That evening to the Prime Minister?
Yes, I think.
She did it the first time she saw him, though, and that's Julie Bishop's argument, that she did it the following morning and made it quite clear that at the first available opportunity to see him.
This is the tip of the iceberg. Obviously, it was going on longer than just going to that meeting. I can't believe that suddenly he went to that meeting. He must have been involved.
prior to that Sunday.
Yes, there must be some prior involvement, and the whole thing was shabby. The idea that you bring it on well before the Canning by-election, because you thought that you saw the information that Canning was going to be won, and this would entrench Tony Abbott. I thought it was very shabby, and the whole purpose of this has been because of the news polls, and the fact that obviously Malcolm wanted the job.
Are you surprised, though, at how well Malcolm Turnbull's done since? I mean, he is stratospheric in his polling, and he does seem to be prepared to embrace some pretty tough topic areas like tax reform. We wait to see what the follow-through is.
The commentariat has done what they do very well. They've gone soft now. They've got the result they wanted. They've gone soft.
You're saying it's a conspiracy?
Well, not a conspiracy in that everybody's worked it out together, but the groupthink, which tends to apply in the gallery, has prevailed, and they're now all saying what a wonderful job he's doing. And Malcolm is a wonderful actor. He wonderfully presents this affable, avuncular image, which is superb. He's a fascinating man, and he's doing this very well. But come the first crisis, there'll be problems. I mean, he's obviously gone too far on the GST.
But what does a Conservative or other Conservatives like you, what do you do? It's a compulsory voting system, compulsory preferencing. I imagine that, you know, whatever doubts or concerns you might have about a small L Liberal like Malcolm Turnbull, you would see him as a lesser of evils to Bill Shorten on the Labor side. What do you do? What do Conservatives do?
I think Conservatives will do that, but Conservatives are pushing for reform within the Liberal Party. The Liberal Party has to do what American parties did. They began to do a century ago, and that is democratise. And the Liberal Party is...
your point is that the moderates are concerned about that because the membership of the Liberal Party is more conservative.
The rank and file is very conservative, and the rank and file wouldn't tolerate a lot of the things that go on. That's why you get this extraordinary difference between which I pointed out in that chapter of that book that you edited. There's an extraordinary difference, is there not, between the membership and what the politicians think. The politicians are far more to the centre-left in many respects than the membership of the Liberal Party, and that's the same in the Republican Party in the United States. I talk about the Republican Party being Democrat, but the Republican membership, the Republican Senate and House membership have been far, far different from. They've been much closer to Obama than the rank and file, and that's why they're outraged.
We're standing by for a Bill Shorten media conference. We will bring that to you when he gets to the microphone. In the meantime, I'm talking to Professor David Flint about a range of issues, not just the royal visit. So apologies in advance if and when I have to jump in when we go to that Bill Shorten media conference. Malcolm Turnbull, when he launched the book for Troy Bramston and Paul Kelly, he took an unusual position for a Liberal leader in relation to the 1975 crisis. Did that surprise you?
It did. I think Malcolm Fraser can be criticised for doing what he did, that is, delaying supply. I think that can be criticised, and in retrospect, it didn't work out very well for him, because if he'd waited a reasonable amount of time...
He would have got there anyway.
Yes, and he would have then been able to do a lot of the things that he should have done, and he didn't do. But once he started that, and once Gough Whitlam refused to do what he knew he should do, he knew that his duty was to, after a while, advise an election or to resign. He didn't do that. So both of them are at fault. And Sir John Kerr's getting the blame. And I think this is appalling.
On the monarchy, if you're a betting man and you had to lay a punt on whether or not there will be another referendum on the Republic before Prince Charles becomes King Charles, or at the moment at which he becomes King Charles, perhaps as an alternative, would you say yes, that is more likely than not?
I don't think there'll be a referendum. They won't hold a referendum until public opinion changes. I don't think it will. If you go back to 2000...
They argue that it already has, though. The Republican movement says that there is now polling evidence to support there being a majority of Australians that are in favour of a republic. They just can't agree on the model.
That poll that Essential handled, it was a commission poll. The question was written by the ARM, and the question was loaded because it assumed that we don't have an Australian head of state. Now, that is in issue between Republicans and monarchists, and the Turnbull government. When Sir Peter Cosgrove goes overseas, they will hold him out to be the Australian head of state, and he will be received everywhere as the Australian head of state. He'll receive the appropriate 21-gun salute on state visits.
He's also known as Sir Peter Cosgrove, but Knights and Dames are gone. What do you think of that?
Well, Malcolm mishandled that. When New Zealand Labor did it, they changed the name for future top level. So we've got this top level which we can't award, so there's a diplomatic tool which has disappeared. You can hardly, say you had somebody, say you had a foreign president or a king or some famous celebrity and you wanted to honour them. You can't give them the highest award anymore because it still exists. So you've got to offer them something which is unacceptable, that is the second level.
For what it's worth, I think that if he'd initially imposed Knights and Dames and not made it his decision as Prime Minister, I wouldn't be surprised if it did survive as opposed to not. I think that was a large part of the problem.
And very soon we're going to see in New Zealand that magnificent captain of the All Blacks. When he retires, he'll become Sir Richie McCaw.
Yep, he will.
And the New Zealanders will love it, and they'll think here, perhaps we should have kept that because we had...
Oh, I don't know that that's what we'll think, to be honest.
Sir John Monash, our greatest soldier, Dame Nellie Melba, Dame Joan Sutherland, our greatest soldiers.
It often comes back to the way that you do these things, and I really...
Oh, I agree with you, I agree with you. You're right. For example, I think the knighthood of Prince Philip was perfectly in order. Should have probably been on his birthday.
Not on Australia Day.
Yes. Charles has just been in New Zealand. He's been made a Field Marshal, an Air Marshal and an Admiral of the vast New Zealand Navy. Now, nobody's batted an eyelid. Philip received the highest award in about 40 to 60 countries. Nobody carried on. I think you're right. It's the way you do it, but it's also how the commentariat reacts. And the commentariat hated Tony Abbott.
All right, I've got to jump in there, Professor Flint. Thanks for your insights. We're going to listen to Brendan O'Connor. You can see him in the bottom of the screen before Bill